got that out of my system. What is this, Guitar Center? Anyway, what I meant to say was hello and welcome to Dave Hill's podcasting incident with me, Dave Hill, the pride of Cleveland, lozenge enthusiast, and your worst nightmare all rolled into one. Well, hopefully not that last part, but the first two things for sure, because that sounded pretty cool. Anyway, hi, how are you? I'm glorious, and I'm excited to deliver to your ears for the third magical week in a row a brand new episode of Dave Hill's podcasting incident, back from the dead after a nearly 5-year hiatus, thanks in no small part to my friend and partner in crime, Chris Gersbeck, who is in charge of all the knob twiddling and the slick sounds you're hearing. I know this is a pretty technically advanced podcast, of probably the slickest one out there today. Anyway, what I wanted to say was today is Friday, October 25th, 2018. If you're listening on the release day, I don't know, you might be listening on another day. I don't own you. I don't know what you... Anyway, what I wanted to say was I'm having a lot of fun doing this. It's good to be back. I think we're going to keep doing it until we're all dead. Chris, add some echo to when I say dead there, if you have time, for impact. But yeah, it's been fun coming over to my dining room table here, which, to be honest, is in my living room, interest of full disclosure and all. And sitting here with my co-host and dog, Lucy, who's sleeping at the moment. And yeah, we have people over, we drink coffee, and we have a nice time for about an hour or so. Then we get on with our lives. It's great. Very quickly, before we move on, well, we're moving on, I guess, to the next part. I'm going to beg you once again to go buy my band Valley Lodge's new album, Fog Machine. I've been using our song Stand as the opening music to the podcast lately. Go to our website, valleylodgehq.com. We're playing a bunch of shows, well, 4 of them, which is a lot for a band of guys in their 40s. November 6th at Mercury Lounge in New York City. November 8th at Ace of Cups in Columbus. November 9th at Beachland Ballroom and Tavern. Let's be honest, we're in the tavern, the smaller room. November 9th, and then November 30th at Hank's Saloon. Go to my website at davehillonline.com. You can find all the same info about the shows that's on the other website, valleylodgehq.com. So there. I did it. The late, great Joe Franklin always used to tell me to get the plugs out of the way at the top of the show. So I've done it. Moving on. It's Halloween in a few short days. So I thought I'd scare the crap out of you with the scariest ghost story of all time. And if you scare easily, I should warn you, maybe you should fast forward a little bit, because this is going to blow your mind right out your butthole. Let's just get into it. Chris, can you add some scary music, or maybe some wind or something? Right, starting right now. Okay. Yeah. Like that. Perfect. Okay, so there's these guys. And this is, this happened like late 80s, early 90s, but people still talk about it to this day, even in the post-grunge era. So there's these guys. There's Johnny, Joey, and they're best friends, right? But then they had these other friends, Ronnie, Bobby, Ricky, and Mike. And they'd all just graduated school. I can't remember if it was high school or college. I think it was high school. And they're super pumped, right? And to celebrate, kick off the summer, Johnny's uncle, his cool uncle, with the long hair, he has a cabin, like, way out in the middle of nowhere in the woods, like, up in this mountain, and it doesn't even show up on any maps. It's really hard to get to, and it's really far away, but once you get there, it's like a sweet party pad. So they're like, yeah, we should totally go there. And Joey has this sweet party van, this conversion van. It has the captain's chairs. It had, it was like state-of-the-art 1988. It has a VCR and a cassette player, and they're like, yeah, let's go. And they get a bunch of beer, and they bought some weed off the guy outside of the 7-Eleven, and Ronnie or Bobby, I can't remember which, made this mixtape, and it was the sickest mixtape of all time. It had, like, think about it, all your favorite bands, right? all those bands were on the mixtape. I know, it was pretty cool. And you're like, oh my God, I can't believe I have the same taste in music as the guys in this story. But it's true. You guys, you would have loved these guys. Oh, jeez, I probably gave it away that they all die at the end. Oh, anyway, they get in the van. And they're driving, they're like, whoa, this is awesome. They're partying, they're drinking beers and smoking weed. And they're cruising down the road. And then they see, like on the side of the road, there's like this broken down car. And all these like smoking hot chicks. They were like the Hawaiian Tropics bikini team, but only, I don't know, they weren't in bikinis. They were just like jeans and t-shirts, pretty casual. And they're hanging and they're like waving to like pull over, you know. And so Johnny and Joey, and they're like, yeah, let's pull over. And they pull over, and these girls are like, our car broke down. Can you help us out? They're like, well, we're going to this sweet party cabin. You want to go? And they're like, sure, yeah. And they all get in. And these, to be clear, like these chicks were like way out of the other dudes' league, like massively out of their league. But they were down to earth, and they didn't really care. They weren't hung up on like looks or status or whatever. So they were totally down with hanging out with Johnny and Joe and Ronnie, Bobby and Ricky and Mike and really getting to know them. And they're really hitting off. Everyone's partying. They start, and so the mixtape comes back on, and all the hot smoking hot chicks were like, oh my God, these are all our favorite bands too. So everyone's just jamming to these tunes. And just fill in the names of whatever your favorite bands are. That's who they were listening to, right? And they're smoking the weed and drinking beers. And then at one point, they're just driving along. And the girls, like, without even, for no apparent reason, just, like, took their tops off. But it wasn't done in, like a sleazy, slutty way. They were, like, European, you know? So it was totally not a big deal at all. And anyway, so they're driving along the party. And they're like, yeah, we're going to be at the party cabin soon. That's going to be so cool. And so they're cruising along, right? And then all of a sudden, like, the engine starts smoking, and they're like, oh my God, what's going on with the engine? And then they get a flat tire, and it's like, you know, you've had a flat tire, you know. So they're like, oh, this sucks, you know, and turn off the mixtape. I'm not having fun anymore. And they pull over, and they're like, we gotta fix this van. This sucks. And they couldn't figure out what was wrong, and everyone was bumming out super hard. They're coming down from their buzzes, and the smoking hot chicks put their tops back on because they're like, we're not even having fun anymore. And the guy's like, oh man, this sucks. And they're waiting, and they're like kind of like hoping someone comes along to help them, but like some cars cruise by like, that's, you know, they're not stopping for them. And they're waiting like, please help us. And no one does. And they're waiting for hours. And finally, this car comes along, right? And it's like this little beat-up car, like a Gremlin or something, like like a 78 Gremlin. And there's this guy inside, and he's this weird guy with a long beard, and he's got food in the beer. And the floor of the car is like covered in big gulps and stuff. And he's like, hey, can I help you? And they're like, oh, this guy seems kind of weird. But they're like, yeah, our van broke down. We're wondering if you could drive us into town or help us get our van fixed. They're like, well, or no, they were like, drive us to our party cabin. That would be so cool because we're going to the party cabin. And he's like, well, I can't drive you that way, but I have a hitch on the back of my car here, and I can drive you all in the totally opposite direction back to my place, and it works out great because I'm a mechanic too. I'll fix your van. They're like, oh my God, all right, this is cool. And they hooked up the van to the back of his car, and I don't know how his car was strong enough to pull the van with everyone in it and stuff, but it just wasn't a problem. And they get to his house, and they're thinking it's going to be this weird, you know, murder hole or whatever, but it was this really nice place. It was like sort of a Frank Lloyd Wright style house. And it had like really nice mid-century modern furniture. It's like really tastefully done. And then like the garden was like super nice manicured, but not like over, like it wasn't like, not like topiary, but it was just like nice, you know, like you walk out and you're like, oh, this is beautiful. And he's got a pool and stuff, and then he's like, well, why don't you guys swim and have fun and by the pool, and I'll fix a van, and then I'll fix it in a jiffy and send you on your way. So they're like, oh my God. And he's like, here, do you mind if I put in a mixtape? And he puts in a mixtape. it had the same jams that they were into, but like not the same ones, exact same ones on their tape, but it was like all the same awesome bands that are your favorite bands, and everyone's in this story's favorite bands, and everyone's like, I can't believe this guy has such good taste. And they're partying, they're like, oh my gosh, and he's like bringing them beers, and the girls are like, yeah, we're gonna take our tops off again, and just a totally relaxed, not a big deal European way, and everyone's having a great time. And then the guy comes back a little while later, and he's got like oil on his face. He's like, well, I fixed the van. Send you on your way. And everyone's like, awesome, weird guy. You're the best. And he's like, before you go, let's all have a toast. And he gets like this bottle of whiskey or hooch. It's weird looking, at a weird label. It had 3 X's on it. And he's like, okay, everyone have a shot. Cheers. And they all drink the shots. And then they start feeling a little woozy. Fast forward, they wake up in a dungeon. Yeah, I know, it was nuts. And they're all in a dungeon, and they're in cages. And it's not even, they're in individual cages. He had all these cages, like one cage for each of them. And they're all alone, each in a cage. And they wake up like, what happened? They're all groggy. They're like, oh my God, we're in a dungeon. And it smelled weird, like cat pee, but then like other stuff where they couldn't even figure out what the smell was. And they were playing like really bad music in the dungeon, like blaring like late era Goo Goo Dolls and like Are You Gonna Go My Way by Lenny Kravitz over and over. And they're like, oh my God, it's driving us to the point of madness. And they're like, it sucks, we're in a dungeon. And they're chained up inside the cages, which is like file under one other thing they don't need, And they're totally lost their buzzes at this point. And so they're like, oh my God, this sucks. And then the weird guy comes down and he's like, ah. And they're like, weird guy, I can't believe you did this to us. And he's like, he's got these big mean dogs, and they're like, wah, wah, wah. And he's like, all right. And then he has a stick and he's poking them through the cages, and they're like, oh my God, stop that. And he's like, no. And then also like he's figuring out like kind of what their insecurities are, and like kind of honing in and making fun of those things, like going, hey, your nose is slightly too large for your face, and like you call that a side part, Anyway, he was just like really, really pissing these guys off, and the hot chicks too, and then he's like, all right, I'll be right back, and then I'm gonna kill all of you. And he leaves the dogs like, rah, rah, the attack killer dogs will watch you, and they're all like, rah, rah, rah. They're bigger than that. I can't really do that voice. But so he leaves, and they're like, oh my God, this sucks. We got out of here, and they're shaking the bars and shaking their chains, and they can't get out, and the dogs are, rah, and then Johnny, like all of a sudden, like he gets out of his chain somehow. He's like, oh my God. And then he kicks the door of his cage, and it opens, and he's like, oh my God, I got free. And everyone's like, Johnny, now get us out. And he's like, no, this is the plan. I'll go get help, and then we'll come back and get you guys out. And they're like, well, that seems kind of crazy. And he's like, no, trust me. And they're like, okay. And then, and he had a big sandwich, so he just threw it, and the dogs were distracted by that, and they went for the sandwich. And he runs out this door that ended up being weirdly open. And he runs out into the night, and the dogs, they finish the sandwich pretty quickly, so they start chasing him, and he's running, and there's pricker bushes, and the weird guy took his shoes off, so he's barefoot, so he's like, oh my God, this hurts. And he's running and running, and he finally makes it he eludes the dogs, and it's nighttime by now. And he's waiting on the side of the road, and he's waiting for hours, and he's like, oh my God. And he's breathing heavy, and he's got a lot of cuts from branches and twigs and things. And then he's waiting and for cars. No cars will stop. And finally, he sees these headlights. And the headlights are coming. And the car stops. And he's like, oh my God. I can't believe it. Finally, someone stops. I can go into town and get the police or whoever and save all my friends. And he gets in the car and he sits down. And he doesn't even look to see who's driving. He can't even see. The lights are off. And then the driver flicks on the car's lights, and Johnny at first, he's like, oh, thank you so much, you saved my life, and we're going to go save my friend's life. But then he turns, and the driver turns the lights on, and he hits the mixtape, and it's all the same awesome jams again. So Johnny's like, oh my God, cool mixtape again. But he looks, and it's you're never going to guess who it is. it's the weird guy with the beard. And Johnny's like, oh my God, wait, you're going to take me back to the house and kill me with all my friends, right? And he goes, yeah. And they all died. Okay, I hope you enjoyed that. Let's keep moving. Let's move on. I hope you might have fast forwarded through that. God, I hope so. My guest today is Emily Flake. She's an absolute delight. She's a cartoonist, an illustrator, storyteller, and so much more. Her work has appeared in the New Yorker, the New York Times, Time Magazine, and on down the line. She's a mother of a child, a human person, and she's great. And we talk about all sorts of awesome stuff, and I think you're really going to enjoy it. I have to warn you, Lucy does a tremendous amount of co-hosting in this episode, and I felt really bad because I felt like Emily's like, oh my God, this dog's annoying. But I think she actually really liked it, like Lucy. I'm not sure if she's crazy about me. I can't. You'd have to ask her. I hope she was. Anyway, here's Emily Flake and me, and I should say, sitting, drinking coffee and chatting. I hope you enjoy it. Emily, thank you for coming over.
Thank you for having me, Dave.
I'm excited. I'm a big fan of your work.
Thank you.
As they say.
And likewise.
Thank you. I'm looking at some of your drawings right now in front. I have a lot of stuff, Emily Flake based stuff in front of me right now. But we were talking right before Chris Gersbeck here hit record. You just opened for Jawbreaker.
I did in February.
Oh,
in the
past.
recent-ish past. It was in 2018, so I feel like saying just is fine.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And did you do a lot of stuff with PowerPoint and video? Did you do that at the show?
I did, yeah. So it's basically kind of a thing where I show projected cartoons and read them out and then sort of tell some stories. Mm-hmm. So yeah, I did that, and that was the first time I've done anything like that in front of like a rock crowd, and it felt like it went okay. Nobody seemed outwardly upset.
They didn't pelt you.
They did not,
with anything,
which was nice. I appreciated not being pelted.
They can't. Sometimes the rock crowds get up to some. They're just like,
yeah.
Get the.
Why is she talking?
Where's Dawkins? Get Dawkins out here. I've never seen a comedian open up for Dawkins, but I would like to imagine it.
I think we can probably make that happen, right? I mean,
I feel like
magical thinking.
It was vaguely suggest that specific thing. I had a friend who has had me open for music acts in Austin, and he had me open up for Ryan Adams, which went well. Snoop Dogg didn't go so well. Mm-hmm. That's Lucy as usual.
She has a lot to add to this conversation. She's a very cute dog, so that helps.
To a point.
Cuteness helps sell a lot of...
It does. Well, you have a daughter.
I do.
So you know what it's like to be manipulated.
Barked at a lot? Yes.
Manipulated by cuteness.
This is true. Yeah, that is 100% true.
Do you find, as I will have already said in the intro, you're a cartoonist, writer, comedian, performer, mother, and so much more. Do you find doing all these things, is it a pain? Well, yeah, you're obviously extremely busy.
I am, but I'm also super lazy and disorganized. So I feel like that's probably like the worst thing about my working life is just getting in my own way at all times. Mm-hmm.
That's Lucy drinking.
Yeah.
We'll let that slide.
Right.
A dog drinking. But what do you mean getting your own way? Like you have to insist upon that within the context of all the stuff I just mentioned?
I just think that if I were a better organized person and a little bit more on top of things, I mean, I think probably anybody could say this. I would be better at the things if I wasn't always screwing the things up. So there's always that sense of like, you know, I've got a lot of balls in the air, but I'm sure to drop at least 4 of these.
Do you really feel that's the case? Because I think you seem like you totally got your shit together.
Do I?
Yeah.
Okay, let's run with that then. Forget everything I just said.
I am. But I don't know. But I feel this like I feel like as someone who does a variety of things, I feel just like just a never-ending loop of failures in every area, and just dropping the ball, and just like, and I go like, gosh, if I got rid of some things,
right, I
could be the best at one of them. But I like, you know, and I'm assuming you love all the things that you do. I do.
And I mean, do you find that it, like, each one sort of sustains the other thing, or do you just find that you lose interest in one thing and move to the other, or both, or? No,
I think they feed into each other more and more, and then they, sort of having, I guess I don't want to refer to it as a diverse portfolio, but
right.
But I guess as a financial person would.
Right.
But I think of it in that way, like, I have to do this and this and this, and then so if one is like in a lull in some way, either in terms of my enthusiasm or people's desire to give me money to do that thing,
right?
then one of the other ones will kind of. It's kind of like, it's rare that they're all in the shitter.
Right.
There's usually one that's going well enough to keep dog food coming.
Yeah, that's the real truth behind all of this. Just hoping that one thing at least is above water at all times.
Yeah, but then you do that thing where you go like, God, if I just was like, I'm gonna only draw, or I'm only gonna write, or I'm gonna, you know, then you'd be like, then some guy would show up with a big cardboard check for $1 billion.
Exactly. Yeah. Then they would back the money truck up to our apartment building and just start unloading it.
Yeah.
Sometimes I feel like I need to figure out how to block out a certain amount of time to like really like drill down on something, because like I also just tend to kind of bounce from thing to thing, out of lack of concentration. But it's never like, I never particularly say blame drawing for not writing enough or vice versa. It's always more just about like, you know, I fell down a 4-hour Facebook hole, or like, you know, I sat down to work, but I was like, you know, I really need to do the dishes first. I'm just going to do that. Like, I'm very good at distracting myself.
Yeah.
So that, and I blame my daughter for everything. Even though I was honestly probably a lot less organized than before I had her. Having a kid just, you know, does kind of like force yourself to manage your time at least like a little tiny bit better.
That's what my friend Walter told me. Like he said, I mean, in addition to loving his daughter, he said it's forced him to make everything count, because he's like, if I have these 2 hours or whatever to work on something, I can't fuck around.
Yeah, that is 100% true.
Which is, you know, with a dog, you can still squeeze in a lot of fucking around, because they don't. She can't talk and things, and
they rarely beg for screen time.
Right, and and she'll be about this dumb forever. Right. She won't progress. Speaking of which, I think I'll lock her. We'll mark this point. I'm going to lock her in the bedroom. I'm so sorry. See, I guess this is illustrating what we're talking about.
Yeah, exactly. The creatures in our lives and their constant demands on our time.
Yeah. Can't even podcast because of some damn dog. But yeah, do you find that, as we were just talking about, like, does it focus you in a way?
Yeah, for sure. In part because it makes me more precious about my time. And in part because, you know, like, supporting yourself is one thing, but when you're like, you know, if I don't get X, Y, and Z done and filed and, you know, make some money on it, like, she doesn't eat either. I mean, it's definitely lights more of a fire under my ass than may have been there previously.
Yeah.
So like, you know, if I really fuck up, it's not just my ass on the line. So that sounded so dirty, Harry. It's not just my ass on the line. She might not get a My Little Pony pinata. Like,
yeah. And then also there's with an actual human, like my dog, like if things go really south for me.
Right.
And let's be honest, Chris, they're going south. No. I can just hit the streets. Mm-hmm. And dogs do fine.
Yeah.
In that way. But children, not so much.
It really depends on the child. Yeah. I'm trying to prepare her for such a life, but it's not going so well so far.
You just hint. Just so you know.
Right.
We may join.
We might have to become mole people at some point.
Do you think that's true? The mole people, supposedly they exist.
I don't know. I read a book that made it seem very plausible, but then apparently there might have been some issues with the veracity of that book. I don't know. I mean, I certainly think that it's a possible. I think that there are people living in the tunnels. I don't know how established the communities are still.
I always do. I think you can do it on the Blue Line trains, where if you stand in the front car, they have you can stand and you can watch go right through the. I love to do that whenever I can, and I'm always thinking about the mole people.
Yeah, no, that's
thinking they can probably see me right now.
That's one of my least favorite things about one person train operation is there's I think most of the new trains you can't be up front anyway, but but there's definitely no chance of that, in the new trains, the white ones that they have on the L line and everything. Mm-hmm. But years before I moved here, this was pre 9/11, I was visiting from Chicago and I was on the platform and I asked this MTA guy, hey, do you know how I get to whatever next stop? And he told me, and he's like, actually, I'm driving the train. If you want to hop up, in the cab with me, and I was like, yes, I do.
You got to ride in the driver cab?
I did. It was so awesome.
That's so cool.
Yeah. It was super exciting. In as exciting as watching a guy sort of just operate. It's a lot less complicated than I thought it was. I'll say that much. I would think that they can't be doing a ton of they're not calling that many shots. No. I mean, it's pretty much there's a stick with a handle on it, and that's the steering mechanism.
Oh,
and
they
then there
actually
are a few
steer?
buttons.
Oh, because they have to be we're running express, we're running local.
Or they have to, they at least have to, I gotta say, I can't really tell you exactly how the train works after 4 minutes of being up in a cab with somebody, but he seemed to be steering it. Somebody's going to write in that's not how train works. But yeah, it was, he at least had enough, enough time to look at me in my eyes and talk to me about what I was doing later. So if you can flirt and drive a train at the same time, it's probably not that
Yeah, I was wondering,
hard.
Do you think he was trying to, he wanted to ask you out or something and was check out.
Yeah. Which is a pretty cool way to introduce yourself to a lady. It's better than you want to get in my car. It's do you want to get in my train? Yeah.
And are much safer.
Yeah.
I would think.
Yeah. Because it has to stop at some point. He can't just drive you off the rails into the woods somewhere and murder you.
Yeah.
And he didn't seem murdery. He did ask me out, but I was seeing somebody at the time, so I had to sadly decline.
And you would come from Chicago, you said? Mm-hmm. What were you doing there?
I moved there. I went to art school in Baltimore, and then I moved to Chicago for 4.5 years. And I worked in music distribution.
What is distributing records?
Mm-hmm. I worked for a place called Carrot Top. And when I first moved here, I worked for Caroline Records.
Oh, nice.
Yeah.
Oh, wow.
So that's
pretty cool.
Yeah, it was.
That's legendary. I'm naive. Do they still exist, or are they?
Not really. They sort of got folded into the larger EMI EMM ecosystem. Yeah. But yeah, I was only there for a couple years, but it was a good experience. I met my husband there.
Oh, nice.
So that was good.
Yeah. But yeah, they did a lot of cool. What do they do? Smashing Pumpkins and some of the other ones.
Hole was on Caroline. They were not doing as much as a label by the time I worked there. It was mostly just distributing. And when I worked for them, all I did was sales. In Chicago, I did sales and buying and packing and shipping and, at some point in the early aughts, I had impeccable warehouse skills.
Wow. And is that getting to be too much, Chris? Oh, okay. She'll calm down.
Right.
Or will she? I'm really sorry about her.
No, I totally, believe me, I understand.
Now, so is your husband in the music business?
Yeah, he runs a small record label called Outer Battery, and he does fulfillment for TP, actually. He's got a box of your records in his office warehouse.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. So, yeah, he's still, I mean, we both work from home, but he's making a go of it.
Oh, nice.
Yeah.
Oh, so you're both there doing your thing.
Yeah.
How does that go?
It's fun. I mean, we met at work, so we were already used to spending a lot of time together. And we're lucky enough to have an apartment where, like, we each have our own workspace.
Oh, nice.
So that helps. My room is also where the cat shits, which is not a great situation because she's a very old cat now.
And what? I've never had a cat, so what goes down?
It's just gross. I mean, she just crawls into the smallest places she can find and takes a shit, and then, like...
Oh, so when you say that's where the cat shits, you don't mean that's where the litter box is.
I mean both things. That is where the litter box is, and it is also where she rage poops.
To get back at...
To get back at
sort of indignity.
Me, life in general. There also might be something wrong with her. I should probably take her to the vet.
How old is she?
I don't know. We got her used, so she's somewhere between
cat.
like 8 and 1,000 years old. But I think she's. Wow. My guess is that she's somewhere around 13 or 14. So that's getting up there for a cat.
Yeah, I'm allergic to cats, so I've never experienced their wonders.
Right.
In terms of ownership.
They have upsides and downsides. I'm not an awesome pet owner. This is the longest I've had a pet, like, ever. And, like, I enjoy her company. But my heart won't break when we no longer have a cat.
Interesting. So you're both getting ready.
Yeah.
You and the
yes.
cat.
Yeah.
Yeah, and cats can't whine and interrupt podcasts like
right.
dogs.
That's true.
Can't.
That's true. Rarely.
Now in terms of, I love your drawings are so beautiful.
Oh, thank you.
But also, like, there's a darkness that I like, as well. Now, in terms of writing, because those are like two, because I used to, that was my first dream in life, is to be an illustrator. And then I got distracted. Mm-hmm. But I still like to draw.
Yeah.
But I find like it's totally, for me anyway, a totally different headspace or whatever than writing.
Yeah.
So do you have like different you wake up and be like, this is a drawing day,
right.
This is a writing day.
I kind of put the drawing off as long as possible. I always write first, and I find it easier to kind of get into a groove with writing. The drawing, like, is different and harder. I feel like I have not to delve too deeply into my psyche, but I have an easier time with the writing, I think, in part because I have a lot less sort of like baggage surrounding it. You know, like every time I draw, I'm like, this is terrible. Whereas I feel like with writing, I can see it in a more like clear-eyed kind of way. Like I can tell what works and what doesn't, and it doesn't like hurt me if I write something that I'm not that into. I'm just like, no, I'll just start over, change it, whatever. So yeah, so there's that. But
that's interesting though. Like so the sort of inner voice of or what my therapist calls the critic,
right?
But it's just like the voice of just, for me, that's just like, oh,
right,
you piece of shit. So you have because I'm kind of the opposite.
Interesting.
Like with writing, the whole time I'm just like, ugh,
right.
you fucking idiot.
Right.
and then with drawing, I think because I draw only, like I'll draw like a T-shirt,
right,
or something, like some super low stakes thing, maybe,
right,
that there isn't the my inner self-loathing,
right,
doesn't even just be like, I don't have time to give him shit about his T-shirt.
Right. And how does it manifest with music for you? Like, is there that
I think I feel like such a failure as a musician that it's the same thing where I'm just like, my inner
right.
voice is just like, let's leave him alone on this one. Because, you know, also I think like music is also, I just do it for fun.
Right.
And it's, you know, and it ends up, you know, I'll get lucky and makes, you know, like license some music and make some money from it, but it's not like I'm trying to
right.
make my band popular.
Right.
Because in my advancing years, that seems like a silly notion to be like, the kids are gonna love
right.
this one. Like for me, if like a 30-year-old says they listen to like
right.
my music, I'm like, the
right.
kids are on board.
Right. Yeah.
So I think my inner voice doesn't have much time to harass me with that.
I mean, I think there's a direct, you know, correlation between like the stakes of something and how loud, you know, that fat bastard inner critic is. Like, and so, you know, I think it makes sense that like whatever, especially if it was something that like you've been doing for a long time and was like, you know, was writing always like a big part of your personality growing up, like, or the identity that you kind of built around yourself?
No, I mean, I think like I stumbled into it. My sister's a journalist, and so when I started writing, and then the idea of writing books, I always kind of felt like a fraud because I was never like someone who was like, I'm gonna finish this manuscript.
Right.
I was just like,
yeah,
I don't know. I
yeah.
don't care. But then when the opportunities came along, then I would be like, oh, I better do a good job.
Yeah.
And then that's when the voice of self-loathing kicks in.
Yeah.
And but I also think failure is a very good, maybe not quite, I guess failure is not a fair word but I think once you give up on the idea of succeeding in a massive way,
right.
at least for me personally, I think, and you can get back to just having fun,
right.
the original, if writing is ever fun, really.
Right.
I think things once, like now I've been working on my third book, and the first two sold so poorly, really, in the big picture of compared to like, you know, books that people buy and read
right.
and things. That now that I'm doing this one, I'm just like, oh, I'll do a good job, but no
right.
one's gonna read this piece of shit.
Right.
So it's actually made it much more fun to write.
It's funny how that works, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
So do you think, knowing, like, say, what makes you with drawing? Because your drawings are amazing. Why would you be so hard on you? What is there something to that, like, that makes you?
Thank you for saying that. I feel like because
they're let me just say, they're beautiful on many levels, and then so. What do you do? You draw in ink and then watercolor? Is that accurate?
Yeah.
But not always watercolor, but that would be the colored stuff.
Exactly. Usually, sometimes I do watercolor over pencil, which is an effect I like. A lot of the New Yorker stuff, for the finals on it, I will pencil it on like graph paper so I don't like fuck it up too bad, and then put it on a light box and do pen and ink over it, and then ink washes. And sometimes just for kicks, I just, you know, mess around with watercolor with no like drawing intermediary, which I think is as close as I come to drawing for fun.
What is that when you say no? You mean you just start painting without
without drawing first, and just, without like a certain goal in mind, just kind of, fucking around with paint, which is fun. And I have to keep reminding myself that it's fun and that it's something that I actually like, at least in theory, enjoy doing. And also that getting to the point, especially in like a professional way, when drawing feels like a chore, is still a pretty lucky position to be in. Like, oh, I guess I got to draw that picture, So, I feel like that's something that I should keep in mind, more often. But yeah, in terms of like why, I feel like probably because drawing was always something that I cared so much about, and I went to art school, but I was
Where did
never.
You go? You went in Baltimore?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I went to the Maryland Institute College of Art. But I was never as good as I wanted to be, and
in terms of like draftsmanship.
In terms of draftsmanship and just like the people who. But one thing that I'm learning over and over, especially as I get older, is that almost everybody feels like this, which is, like, not to take pleasure in other people's suffering, but it's nice to be like, oh, I'm not the only one who just is like, everything I do is terrible and I don't know why. Like,
that is, there is comfort though.
Yeah.
In knowing that everyone, without revealing too much, I was talking to I'll just say another creative type person, and she was talking about this sort of thing of self-loathing and just beating yourself up and all that, and trying to tell me to stop doing that to myself. And then but I said, does anyone not do it?
Right.
And she said, only people that aren't good.
Yeah.
She said, there's people that are successful but not good and think they're awesome and just feel great about it. I
think that's completely accurate.
And I was just like, oh, that's so comforting in a weird ass way.
I know, it really is. It's a whole misery loves company thing. It's good that we're not alone here in the feelings dome. But no, I trained as an illustrator, and so the whole time I worked at Carrot Top, and before that I waitressed, and before that I worked. I got fired. The only time I've ever been fired, I was a secretary at a photocopy place, and I was terrible at it, and I was late all the time. And finally, they called. They're like, "You don't have to come here anymore." So I just started getting freelance illustration jobs, here and there, but it didn't really get to the point where I could not have a day job until I moved to New York. And then I worked at Caroline, and a few months into that, or maybe a year, I started putting away my whole Caroline salary and just living off of my freelance income. So by the time I quit Caroline, I had like a nice little pad of money, and I had sort of proven to myself that I could make a living off of illustration. And I did comics too. I had a strip called Lulu 8-Ball that ran in a bunch of alt weeklies. But I actually didn't start doing stuff for the New Yorker until I'd been freelancing for a year or two. That's when I started submitting. And then that sort of built on itself. And I also always did these sort of slideshow things, but in sort of a peripheral kind of way. And I enjoyed them, but especially when I first started doing them, I was like, maybe this will get me some illustration jobs. I just had I was not oriented at all towards thinking of it as if I maybe concentrate on doing performance more. And in retrospect, I wish I had actually concentrated on that a little bit more, because I truly enjoyed it. And I was younger then and could go out at night a lot more easily.
It gets harder. Well, and let me speaking of which, make a note. I'm gonna let this little asshole she'll probably be calm right now. I've come up with a solution, Chris, for future. I've decided I have to put her to sleep.
That's
the
fair.
Only solution.
That's fair.
She has to be put to sleep. We had a nice run. She's almost 4.
Yeah,
She's
that's
almost 4. Lie down. Lie down. And good girl. Okay.
Oh my God.
Don't worry, Chris. I figured out what we can do, but we will continue to suffer today. I really apologize.
No, I'm very fond of dogs. So.
Oh, good.
Yeah.
I am too, which is why she can get away with it. But so it's harder to as you get older. I love performing, but there is the running, leaving the house part. In terms, there's aside from schedule, I don't think. There's just. You get to be like, I could just be on the couch,
right?
Or even or in many you have a daughter. That's you have a level of commitment that I don't have.
I mean, it definitely makes it harder to leave the house, in part because she's still at an age where and this is probably because we're very indulgent parents, but when she goes to sleep, she likes one of us to be in there and kind of cuddle her for a long time, and she will accept my husband doing it, but she much prefers it to be me. Mm-hmm. And so, and also just being that's when I see her is, afternoons and evenings. So if I'm out of the house 4 nights a week, then that would be sad for all of us. And also my husband might murder me in my sleep. So there's that, but it's not impossible. It's just it would have been easier 15 years ago. Mm-hmm. But that said, I don't really have a follow up to that said. Actually, I'm just gonna trail off into nothing.
Do you ever think I always forget that about the aging process, not the physical aspect of it, but maybe I guess my fear that eventually people will stop asking me to do stuff, because I'll be dead. I'll be closer to death and then eventually fully dead.
Right.
And I don't know what my point is, but in terms of performing and just anything, I realize, because I remember a couple years ago I was doing some shows and I was like, this would be fun to do this sort of tour once a year. Mm-hmm. And then I was like, maybe for the next 20 years or so. And then I was like, wait a minute, this probably isn't up to me. Right. There's gonna be other people who are no, we don't want that. Right, Dave's starting to smell. Right.
This is just an old man yelling at the clouds.
Yeah, and I'm not saying that you were going to run into this. I'm just letting you know my own paranoia.
No, I think that's another thing that probably everybody who does anything like this kind of, thinks about.
The eventuality.
The point at which nobody wants to watch you do anything.
I wanted to ask you about... does your daughter draw, for example?
Yes. Yeah, constantly.
And she likes it?
She does.
I'm assuming.
Yeah. She sits and she'll draw along to the TV. She'll just, she has shows she likes and she sits there drawing scenes from them and elements of them. She's basically sat down and storyboarded Moana one afternoon, just drawing the whole story along with it. It's awesome. It's really cool to see. And I don't really push her one way or the other, but I definitely encourage it. And she likes to write too. Last night she asked me what a diary was, so I was like, it's a place where you write down your thoughts and nobody can look at it without your say so. And she's like, do you have a blank book I could use as a diary? I'm like, yes. Oh. So that was super exciting.
Nice.
So she definitely has tendencies, which is again super and also like lots of kids draw and to write and everything, and then they get to a point where they just they get really in their own head about whether or not they're good at it, and they stop.
What one of the reasons I asked is because I always think about that when because we all draw and do arts and crafts in kindergarten and stuff, and then I remembered in I don't know what grade, second, third, 4th grade or whatever, they start like identifying. And I was, I could draw pretty well as a little kid, and so I was lucky to be identified as one of the, in each class there's like, oh, this kid and that kid or whatever.
Right.
And then they start to, the teacher will be like, look, Dave, it looks like a turkey.
Right. Yeah.
Or whatever.
Yeah.
And then it's not something I realized at the time, but I realized like all kids are all sort of most of the kids will be meant to feel like they're not the ones who have this talent.
Right.
And I think it's a horrible thing that's not done intentionally to kids. But I think that's what makes kids go like, oh, I can't keep doing that.
Yeah,
or one of the
which
things.
it's too bad because and honestly, like, it's fine as kids sort of figure out what they're good at, and move towards what they have a natural affinity for. But I teach workshops and I taught continuing ed for a while, and one of the things that like struck me the most about people who come back to drawing as adults is what they need more than anything else is permission. Like it's okay to sit here and just make marks. It's okay to like take some time and just, let your pencil wander around. I mean, I've had grown people ask me, may I, do this with this tool? I'm like, you can do whatever you want. There's no such thing as art police,
Yeah.
But they have this feeling of just like, almost like, fear. I mean, not like obviously as evinced by our earlier conversation, I understand about fear and shame in art, but it's like, this idea of like not being allowed to draw, that is, it's too bad. And yeah, I mean, I think in some ways that's just a natural thing of like, if a kid is like, oh, I'm not really good at this, I don't want to spend that much time on it anymore. But I hate the thought that kids are like, I suck at this, I don't want to do it anymore. Like, it's too painful to make this effort and have people not love me for it.
Yeah. Yeah, it's a weird thing. But then they, sort of, I know this just from like going back now and like, because I think I was really into drawing until my early 20s and I kind of drifted away from it. And then now in recent years, I've just kind of started doing it again more, just out of like where I was, my first book, I had an idea like the publisher would show me book covers and I would just be like, oh,
right.
And then I was just finally like, fuck it, I'm gonna have to just draw this myself.
Yeah.
And then it was just out of necessity that I started doing. And then like, well, my band needs a T-shirt, I better do it.
Right.
And then so now I started doing the album covers.
Right.
And it's just been sort of out of like, oh, we need to get this done and
right.
They need it next week. And I'm not particularly good, but I have to get it done by Wednesday.
Right.
And the amount of time I don't have the heart to like ask someone to do something and then
right.
tell them to change. That doesn't
right.
look like a donkey or whatever. There's no donkeys in any of the covers, but whatever. but sort of in that process of just being like, oh, I have to do this.
Yeah.
Then now I've gone back to like, oh, I have fun doing this again, and like, I know I'm not very good, but it's so relaxing and enjoyable.
Yeah, but I think like necessity and deadlines are kind of like the Dumbo feather. The feather he's got to clutch in his little trunk to believe that he can fly, even though it has nothing to do with the feather whatsoever. You just need something to distract yourself from the thought that you can't do it enough to like get to the point where you can.
Yeah.
Does that make sense?
Yeah, absolutely.
And I feel like that's an important, thing with any like creative process, just finding that thing to like get you over that hump of feeling like, oh, this is going to be terrible. And yeah, that's why deadlines are really important. 'Cause it's like, oh, it might be terrible, but I got to get it done. So
yeah, you have no choice. Like when I was living back in Cleveland, my first band kind of ran we were going to the plan was to take over the world.
Of course.
And then we didn't. And then I started painting houses, and this was during like the faux finish boom of the late 90s, early 2000s. So people would be like, oh, can you make my kitchen look like Tuscany or whatever? And I'd be like, yeah. I could do that. Yeah, I could do that. And then so we're just, and then be like, can you do an aquarium in my bathroom? Mm-hmm. And then I would just say yes, having no idea how to do these things. But then I would be like, they're watching me show up at their house every day to do this. Like, I have to do it. Yeah. And then you start to go like, oh, I can paint a fish. Right. If someone's going to stare at me while I'm doing it. Totally. And I told them that I could do it. Yeah. I think that's a good thing. In all, maybe short of surgery. Yeah. Driving the subway, maybe. Mm-hmm. And a couple other things. Yeah. But those are maybe the areas. No, bluffing your way into a situation where you kind of have to like figure out how to do something, I think is an excellent path forward. That would be the one thing, if I do ever have a human child, mm-hmm. that would be my one, aside from the basics. Yeah. The teeth brushing and things. Right. Of just be like, just go, like, just keep going. Yeah. Like, that's the only thing that really matters. Pretty much. Because I think, like, you can nurture talent and ability and intelligence and stuff, but you can't really control it. You can't be like, okay, I'm gonna be a super talent. And I see a lot of people with kids, they'll ask me about like, well, what my kid likes to draw. What kind of classes should they be taking? What kind of program should I get them into? I'm like, nothing. Leave them the fuck alone. Like, give them paper and time, and just like don't put them in this chute of like, grades and expectations and this whole thing of like I don't think that's a good idea for kids, especially for like little kids. I mean, maybe once you get to high school and you want to start learning like a lot more like technical stuff or really like drill down on certain skills, that's one thing. But like, I'm not super into classes like that for like 7-8-year-olds. Mm-hmm. It's just like, just give them time and space. Yeah. So that's my soapbox. Or we can talk about the expense of college these days and how I think that's a scam. But don't get me started. Well, that's a ways off. Well, it'll be here before you know it. Yeah, I guess. Yeah, if there are still colleges in 2020, whatever, math is not my skill. Yeah, like whenever she's college age, 2030. Can that be right? Yeah. Would that be 12 years? Yeah. That's crazy. 2030. Oh, that's gross. But you have 2 books. Is there another one coming down the pike? I'm working on a proposal for a YA book that will sort of take the form of diaries and fanzines from 1992. Oh, nice. So, yeah, I'm excited about that. I'm really trying to find a way into... this sounds super pretentious, but I'm trying to like find the voice to like tell this story. I've been looking through like a lot of my old diaries and ephemera from the time, which is helpful in some ways, and in some ways it's just like, oh my God, what a drip. Like, I don't want to be this lady again. Like, so I got to figure out a way to like take from that without like inhabiting the actual person I maybe was in 1992. But it's fun. I think like if I can kind of get there, I think it'll be a fun project. So we'll see. That seems, so what would technically be the young adult? What is the range? Is there there must be like some sort of hard window in the publishing world that they talk about? I think it's like 11 or 12 maybe to
16, 17-ish. Yeah, I think that's about what they're looking at for YA. And yeah, my first job was at in the children's library, and I loved, like, it wasn't called YA then, it was like junior young person. I loved, like, Robert Cormier.
Junior young person.
Yeah.
That's like a good band name.
It kind of is.
Up next, junior young person.
There's a bunch of songs about Robert Cormier.
But yeah, so I've always wondered. I've never attempted that, but my agent will always talk about that.
Yeah.
Like, not saying he'll mention YA books he's working on. I always wonder, like, how would you get in the headspace? Because that's what I think I would do. Is I would just be like, I guess I'll use the word rad a lot.
Yeah.
But
I think
which they don't do. But,
right.
And I will sound like an old man trying to.
Hello, fellow young people.
Yeah.
I think it's hard to, like, get into that headspace without condescending or, like, pandering to people that age, you know. So in some ways, it's almost like I feel like I want to figure out a way to write a letter to myself from myself at a certain age. I think also maybe, like, you know, setting it in a time that I remember that isn't, because I mean, I'm not really sure what young people are necessarily like right now. I've got some nephews who are teenagers, and I am glad I am not a teenager in 2018.
I can't imagine. I would. There's so many more reasons to be insecure.
Oh God! I mean, it's like, what a fucking panopticon they live in. You know, like, at least if you fuck up, you know, at your high school in, you know, the 80s or 90s, whatever, it's like, you know, that fuck up only exists in this, like, certain bubble of time and space of people who saw it. It's not like online forever for everyone to see.
Yeah.
That'd be hard.
It's insane. Like, it's magnified in such a way, like, I mean, because first of all, I always think, like, children are when you go to, like, elementary school or whatever, you're completely lied to, like, by your parents, and so, like, don't worry, like, no one's gonna, some horrible thing will happen.
Right.
You shit your pants in the
Right.
cafeteria. That didn't happen to me.
Right.
That would be later in life.
Right.
For me, but, like, something horrible happens, and then adults will be like, no one is ever gonna remember that.
It's
But
such
they
a lie.
are absolutely gonna remember it.
Yeah. Yeah.
Was I talking about this last week? This is a constant thing in my head of how you can remember, like, I can remember everyone who pissed themselves in the desk, everyone
Yeah.
who got, and whatever kid had a boner in the locker room, remember them forever.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I definitely remember, I'm thankfully blanking on his name, but, like, the kid that, like, barfed in choir class, like, in front of everybody. He was, like, you know, or the
But if
the
he
kids
walked
that
in here
pee,
now,
the
you'd
kids
be
that-
like, oh yeah, I
yeah.
remember that.
choir barf. Like,
And he probably has, like, a family and responsibilities
I'm sure.
beyond puking.
yeah, one hopes. I mean, you never know. But yeah, I mean, and that's something I think about a lot too, especially now that, you know, I have a kid she'll be 6 on Thursday.
Oh wow!
And
Happy birthday!
Yeah, thank you on her behalf. But, like, I think about how cute other kids are not to you when you are a kid. Like, I might have been, like, Susan Orlean or somebody who had this thing of, like, kids are life size to each other, you know, and none of this is, like, something they're just like, oh, it's just kid stuff, you know. This is all very real and very much happening, and it's terrifying. Other kids are terrifying to each other, and they're also, like, you know, they're not giving you correct information about yourself, like the things you hear about yourself from other kids, or the things that you say to other kids about them. It's not correct information, but it's the first information that you get, you know. And I feel like that lays a bedrock of stuff that, like, feels like truth on up into your adulthood.
Yeah.
Even though you have learned better or changed things or whatever, it's just like that was the first thing you learned about yourself, you know, that like, and from like uncivilized people who didn't know any better. Like,
Yeah. It's a weird thing, like, and then I hear about it, like, as a grown man with no children, I'm always like, when I see, like, other, you know, friends or family or whatever and their kids and, like, things that'll happen, I want to be like, I had one friend who, or like it was a friend's in-law or whatever, who was like, the son wanted to play saxophone, but the dad was like, no, like, don't do that. Keep playing football.
Right.
And I was wanting to be like, fuck that.
Right.
Like,
Yeah.
don't play football. Like,
Yeah.
go play the saxophone. Like,
Yeah.
your 8th grade football team, Lucy. We're really hitting on something, Lucy, and you. I'm so sorry.
No, she has a lot to contribute to this conversation. She remembers her puppyhood.
It's crazy making. I apologize. Yeah, so he wanted to play saxophone, and I was just like, do that. Like,
yeah.
Because I remember, like, wanting to play. I mean, I always liked hockey, and I kept playing hockey, but I feigned an interest in football and basketball until I was like 13, and I started playing guitar.
Right.
And I was just like, what?
Right.
Why did I ever act like I gave a fuck about that stuff? Like, this is what I want to do.
Were your parents invested in you doing one or the other? Or
no, they didn't give a shit.
Right.
At all.
Yeah.
Like, it was just like, I realized that if you could go to school on Monday and talk about what had happened in the football game, the Browns game or whatever,
right,
that was social currency.
Right.
And then to play on the football team was like, oh, this is like all, this will help me get through this experience of being 12 or whatever.
Right.
And then I started playing guitar, and I was like, oh, none of that. And I still play guitar.
Right.
Don't play basketball or football.
Right.
But so I saw this in this kid, and I was like, but he went and played football. And
that's too bad.
now he's in jail. He's in jail now.
And now he's dead.
Yeah. But
a prison football injury.
Yep. It's very sad.
Yeah.
What do you have coming up that we can tell listeners about in between my annoying dogs whining?
So I co-host a night of parenting-themed comedy with Ophira Eisenberg.
Yeah.
Right? I know.
Lucy really perked up. Parent-themed.
Right.
You know, Ophira has, like, she must be like 3-year-old.
Yeah, he's somewhere in that area. Yeah.
I pride myself on guessing ages of people's children.
Nicely done. Yeah, he's a super cute kid. And so we do that on sort of like a quarterly-ish basis, usually at Union Hall, but we're doing it as part of the New Yorker Festival in October. And then we're coming back to Union Hall in November. But this one will be special because it's part of something called the Reimagine Festival, which is about death. So we're going to be talking about parenting and death. We're going to do the
together at last.
Yes, the whole circle of life. And I am starting a show called Nightmares at the KGB Red Room, in which people tell me and my co-host about their nightmares, and we kind of delve into that and use that as a way to like talk about them. Then I give them a drawing based on their terrible dream.
Oh, so they can live with the nightmare forever.
Exactly,
but it's
or
sort of,
burn it if they want to.
Oh,
Could be a
but
way
who
to,
would
like,
your drawings are so wonderful. I hope that no one would burn them.
Oh, it depends on how. If it's a bad recurring dream, maybe personifying it and then burning it is just the way to go.
A nice ritual.
Yeah.
You should, not to tell you what to do, but I have your website here. You should make T-shirts, because I like T-shirts.
Yeah.
And I love your drawings, and my thought, because I saw the shop button. I was like, I hope there's cool T-shirts
Right.
for sale.
I should, especially in these times when you can like just tell a company make me like 6 T-shirts and they'll do it, and it's not even that much money.
I literally was doing that before you got here.
Yeah, I should make T-shirts. I should have more merch.
It's a way. If you want to take my money, boom. Thank you so much for coming over, Emily.
Thank you so much for having me over. This was so much fun.
And I apologize so much for my lack of professional podcasting environment.
No,
I've thrust you into today.
I love your dog, and I am happy to hear her voice. She's a beautiful dog.
She is a beautiful dog, but I imagine it would be like if I came to your house and your daughter was doing things that I probably would find adorable the entire time, but you would probably be like, that kid's going to boarding school.
Get off that man! Yeah.
Like, the whole time I'm thinking, like, where are farms I could send Lucy to?
Right.
Just for a short while.
Just a farm.
And everyone go to emilyflake.com and there are links to Mama Tried and These Things Ain't Gonna Smoke Themselves, which I'm less familiar with. That's about a sort of a memoir of smoking.
It is like an illustrated essay, basically, about smoking.
Were you a smoker?
I was a
Or are you
smoker.
a smoker?
I'm still a smoke every once in a while. I'm sort of like a keep it pack in the freezer kind of smoker.
That's the best kind of smoker to be.
I mean, if you really believe in yourself, you can half-ass anything. So yeah. But yeah, that came out in like 2007. That's an old book.
That's old school.
But yeah.
But a timeless classic.
That's what I like to think.
So.
Yes. Yeah.
So there, everyone.
I'll have to update it to reflect Juul or whatever the fake cigarettes kids are smoking now.
Do a
vaping.
a vaping memoir.
Yeah.
I feel like if we can get this even just those sentences to the right ears,
Yes.
you've just sold it already.
Done.
Vaping memoir. Chris, write this down. Vaping memoir.
A life in steam.
Call your agent. You've done it.
Yeah.
A life in steam.
You all right?
Sold.
All right. Fuck that YA book.
It's out 2020.
Yep.
And there you have it. My delightful conversation with Emily Flake. For more information on Emily and all of her exploits, go to emilyflake.com. For more information on me, Dave Hill, from before, go to davehillonline.com, and that's a portal to all things Dave related. Go join, whatever, Dave Hill's Podcasting Incident on Facebook. I think we're going to create a Facebook group so you can chat away in private about things that you like and absolutely don't like about the show. Maybe stuff that has nothing to do with the show, but it'll be fun. Trust me. Rate and review the show on iTunes. Subscribe on iTunes. And all of those wonderful things. And I think we're going to figure out how we're going to keep this going. Whether we're going to take Colombian drug lord money or maybe do some sort of other crowdfunding thing, or I don't know. But I think we'll announce whatever we're going to decide and then announce it. We're going to announce it. I don't know why. Oh, I can't really speak. Why do I have a podcast? There's the question. I struggle with words. But anyway, we're going to announce all that next week. Buy my band Valley Lodge's new album, Fog Machine. Listen to the goddamn Dave Hill Show on WFMU. Thank you to Chris Gersbeck. Thank you to Lucy. Thank you, of course, to Emily Flake. And thanks to all of you for listening. We'll see you next week. I think that's all the things I meant to mention. I'll probably remember 58 other things as soon as I hit stop. But I'll leave you with a song from my band. This show is shameless because it's pretty much it's shameless. I'm just promoting my own things, but why not? This is a song called I'll Leave You With, True by my band Valley Lodge. It's a song I like a lot. You can just hit stop if you want, but you might like it because it's incredible. So there. See you next week. I love you so much. I'm Dave Hill. Together we can make a difference.